But I will if you'd like me to. Wait, how do I do this again? I go to airplane.
Airplay.
So,
And your top menu bar on the right.
you got it? Some monitors.
She's sending
Something in your
emails.
display.
Oh, I can't just search for it.
Class 6 you said?
Yeah.
Class 6?
Class 6, yeah. You have to be on Wi-Fi.
Oh, that was weird.
Yeah, just you and Whoops.
Two mirrors. Is it on? Oh, you haven't connected to the. You're not connected to.
Why not?
What do you call it?
Wi-Fi?
3J. It should auto.
I know.
Try turning it off and back on. Yeah. We don't
Is there a game on?
So
It's sharing.
We'll check if the Wi-Fi's on.
it's a scream choir.
It sounds like it.
It's a metal choir.
We're like a real pattern
Yeah.
togetherness.
I know. Is it 3J108? Do they change the Wi-Fi network?
There's two sets. There's one for the cafe and there's one back here.
What is it back here?
It should-
Is the cafe not coming up?
There's
Three Juice Cafe.
You could also connect to that back here. You should be able to.
Oh, wait.
But it's whenever the Apple TV's network is on, she has to be on.
That needs texting. I gotta
Wait, I should not be on 3 Jewels Cafe, I'm sorry.
You can do it.
I can't.
Wait, you see them?
I got 3 Jewels Cafe.
Try that.
Good.
There you go. You see yellow.
Yeah.
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 You see yellow.
It's
Okay. I'm so glad it's warmer. I just have to say. I think another day of cold is kind of taking over the edge. Hi, everyone. So what we're going to do is start with our opening prayer. We'll prostrate first. I'm a little tired, so just bear with me. I'm actually really tired, so just bear with me. We'll start with opening prayer. We'll start with a prostration. Then we'll start with an opening prayer, which is up here. If you don't follow whatever you feel like you can, and don't prostrate if you don't feel comfortable. And then we'll start with a meditation today. We're going to do what we did last week, which is choose your own adventure. And we'll do a 15-minute sit so you can meditate on your own. Does that sound okay? Okay, I think that feels good. I think I want to graduate us a little bit into knowing how to hold your own space in a group setting. Does everyone know or have something that they can meditate on already? Just everyone's on something? Okay. No? Okay. Options. I'm just going to say this too before we get into class. With meditations, I'm looking at some of your journals, your meditation journals. If you're not submitting, submit. I do remember who submits and who doesn't. One thing I'm going to request is for most of you, try to be consistent with time. Pick one time in a day that you will do it at the same time. Okay, there's something about the consistency, and also try to pick one meditation that you're going to focus on for the month instead of switching it up. Now, if you do switch it up, if you want to, if you have like a couple of, like let's say you want to do 2 meditations kind of back to back, you can do 2 sits back to back, but try not to do like one, and another one and another one and another one. You're not going to see the effect of it. You want to practice. It's not like circuit training. I don't know. It's not like that. I don't know. Like you shouldn't alternate between like cardio and weight training. I don't know. You get what I'm saying. So just keep one consistent one that you are workshopping for at least a week. I would recommend for a full one. And sometimes it can get a bit mundane, but you'll usually start to see it gets mundane and then you'll kind of break into something else and get deeper. And so that it will have a nice effect. So that's the two things. Keep it consistent in terms of time and topic. So if there's something that you'd like to work on, maybe today you can even decide what that meditation will be for you. Meditations that we've done in the past, you can do a Tonglen, which we've been doing. You can do the preliminaries, which you will know of, and you can do that for the entire 15 minutes. You can focus on your breath, which is, it sounds like it's just kind of lame, but it's not. It's super important to be able to do that. And when we do breath, I would also advise being able to focus on your breath and your body and do a body scan. So that's another one. We've also done meditations and focusing in the space of your mind. Something that feels relevant to you that you think is helpful. And when you focus on breath, if you're going to do breath, I would also just experiment with breath not being a single pointed spot of breath, but what your body starts to feel like. So you're really getting a sense of being in your body and what that feels like. Okay, does that work? Okay.
Sashi Puki Jushin Meto Dram Riram Shin De Padi Sangye Shindu Mite Uwarki Roku Nandak Shinla Chuparsho Idam Guru Ratnanda Kamyatayami Sangye Shudam Soki Shoknam La Janju Bardu Daki Kyatsuchi Daki Chenyen Kipe Sunam Ki Drola Panchir Sangye Druparsho Sangye Chudam Soki Shoknam La Janchu Bardu Dakni Kyatsuchi Daki Chenyen Kipe Sunam Ki Drola Panchir Sangye Druparsho Sangye Chudam Soki Choknam La Janchu Bardu Daki Kyatsuchi Daki Chenyen Kipe Sunam Ki
Chola and cheer Sangye Drupasho.
Comfortable. We're gonna do about a 15 minutes meditation sit, and you're going to choose your own meditation. Does that work for you? You have a topic? Okay. So some of the ones that we just mentioned were Tom Len, if you've done that. You can meditate on just simply focusing on your breath and keeping your mind clear and focus on that. You can also focus on, if you know the preliminaries in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, that's another option. And another one that we've done with shamatha is focusing on the space of the mind and watching your thoughts simply move past. That's it. That's all you do. And just whatever you see, you just release back into the air. So kind of 4 different options, or anything else that you've been practicing. Okay. How was that?
Better than last week?
It's hard because I have to cough. Yeah, we're just focusing on.
That sucks, and then you have to focus on that too. Yeah. Anyone else? How was that? Outside or just in your head? Yeah, how is that going?
It's better, a lot better, but still there, so it's present, so
Uh-huh.
it's hard to like do both.
Are you lying down when you're meditating now?
I haven't actually been doing too much. I did it today earlier. It was the first time in like weeks,
Okay.
so it was okay.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay. All right. Okay. Oh, quizzes. So before we start, we're going to start with quizzes. I have 2 groups. You're going to just go into groups. Don't be nervous. It's not a big deal. Don't worry. You have very, very lovely people in your group. So it's basically more like a review. So they're just going to pretty much go over and review what was talked about last week. You'll see if it ties into this week. We're doing a fairly heavy logic class today. Just to give you just a brief background for those of you that are new to the class. What's your name?
Eric.
Eric, okay. Hi, Eric, I'm Jee.
Nice.
Let me just start with my normal precursor before I start. I'm not your typical Tibetan Buddhist teacher, for one. I'm very much about being a practitioner in the world and working in the world and being of the world, as well as practicing Tibetan Buddhism. I'm still very much learning, just like all of you are. It's a practice that I have been doing for now, oh my goodness, I think it's been at least 12 years. These courses I learned, just like you, for a course of, I think it took me from my teacher about 7 years to these courses. And then after that, and a couple of years later, I was asked to teach. So this is my, I think, 2nd year teaching. And I teach what I know. I pass down what I can. If I have questions or I don't know anything, I'll let you know as well. I try to decipher between what's been taught in the scriptures. So everything is very scriptural based. And where the lineage comes from versus my commentary. So you'll hear, I hope, but probably a little bit of both, or quite a bit of both. I try to make the content, as much as delivering the scriptures, trying to so that you can see where it's applicable. I personally don't think it's very helpful when I see teachings or listen to teachings where it's not applicable. And I think it is. I just think it's a matter of how it's delivered and connected to you. I generally like the classes to be very interactive and have discussion. And we're in the Tibetan Buddhist Galupa lineage. So the Galups are in the same lineage as His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And that's considered our root Lama, is what it's called. And so even the series that you see now, this is course 4. It's part of an 18-course series that was created by Geshe Michael Roach, who is the first Western Geshe, and created a course system that was applicable and digestible to Westerners. So Westerners tend to like more structured. The way that these courses were taught in the monasteries, it's kind of when you can, who you know, what teachers you have, and it's not necessarily structured out. So these courses are done in a way to give you really a foundational structure. I will say that depending on where you decide to go with your spiritual path, especially I would say in particular in the Tibetan Buddhist lineages, the content that's delivered in these courses are wonderful foundational fundamentals. They will help give you a gauge of content in different types of lineages if you're interested, or even just give you perspective of how other lineages are structured. The Galupas are very list heavy, so you'll see a lot of lists that happen. For someone like me who is probably more type A, when I first was exposed to this lineage, I really liked it. I like order, I like to see how things are working. So today, this course that we're doing is the Proof of Future Lives. The class that we're gonna do today it's gonna be a little bit more logic heavy. So the Galupas are very much known about logic. How do you prove certain things? It's not just taking things for face value. It's what does that mean? Why does that work? How does that work? So it's not the sexiest of courses or classes, but we'll get through it and hopefully you'll have some takeaway of how to consider logic. But we'll start first and just take about 10 or so minutes and then we'll start class 5. Okay. Great.
You enjoy this?
Yeah.
Have a list.
So, this is a quiz for class 5. First question is, an omniscient being perceives all existing objects. Some of these objects are changing and some are unchanging. Why does this prove that the mind of an omniscient being must be a changing thing?
So the first question is,
An omniscient being perceives all existing objects. Some of these objects are changing and some are unchanging. Why does this prove that the mind of an omniscient being must be a changing thing? They're constantly perceiving changing things.
Is that
if they're perceiving a changing thing, because if they are perceiving a changing, so perceiving changing. So weird.
Do you want to explain what an omniscient being is?
The way things appear, and the way things actually. So the first one is what you're saying, it's like objects are changing. Objects changing.
Okay,
Right.
so just one more time, just,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
because objects are changing.
And then the word unchanging. That, yeah, what we got. The mind is going. Yeah. What's the other question? So some of these objects are changing, some are.
I'm just gonna consult my notes and fact check. Yeah.
What you're saying is.
And then I think we also mentioned, fresh perception too.
I'm not sure we have set up about. Oh, there's one back section. That's like what she just means that you want.
So whatever you perceive, if you're not on drugs.
Yeah.
You know how sometimes people really angry, you know, at that point, you're not doing right, because it's so crowded. And I think. I don't know, I think it's like, whatever your mind.
Okay, second question, what does a person have to?
So, no, I remember saying.
Do you know what the Tibetan for omniscience is? Because there's also Tibetan words we want to write down. It's not, tough one. So yeah, we have to write the Tibetan for omniscience, changing thing, unchanging thing, subject line, and object of line. So we've got 2 out of 5.
You know which is which.
So, no, I don't know if we've done all those. Omniscience,
Largely, it's a lot of those.
things you should take up, things you should abandon.
Should.
I don't know. Maybe I'll add an A later.
Things to give up to well-being afflictions, so.
Omniscience.
I don't know if I have it in Tibetan.
I don't have it.
Okay, we can
It's
come back.
in a past class. Right.
Oh.
Check one.
Was an object. I have that in
I think it's in general, you should say something.
Okay, well, maybe let's come back to it with just more questions. Question 2 is, what does a person have to know in order to be all-knowing?
Yeah.
Say that again?
Like, I'm
Uh,
not
and
sure.
then
Or
it's
it's
just
just-
the
yeah,
give up.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the non-technical approach.
Cool, last question, what items do you have?
Abandonment.
Oh, didn't we? I mean, I don't know, if it's my turn, but I remember in an older class, we talked about something where the leader could never say anything. Have to do with it?
Third question, what evidence do we have that the Buddha is unerring?
I don't know what unerring means.
False sense. Or is
To like not make mistakes.
Yeah.
Or say false.
I mean, he can still be true. But just like what he says, he perceives.
What evidence do you have?
Okay.
That's my assumption.
So what's the question? Why do we know?
What evidence do we have that the Buddha is unerring?
Was it that he describes as?
He sees, because he has
Just.
valid perceptions all the time,
Oh,
so he can't,
yes.
he only speaks truth.
So, yeah, I figured.
Is that evidence?
Maybe it's
Oh,
those
or I
tests.
think there's also.
Isn't that the number he describes?
Where's that one quote? Goklan Dukun, which was the 4 Arya truths. You experience the 4 Arya truths after you have direct perception of emptiness, which is seeing the truth to suffering, seeing the source of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the path. Is that evidence? I will write what we said though. We're all in.
Some of these questions aren't just referencing last class, right?
No, this is for class 5.
It usually is,
Yeah.
so.
What?
For the Tibetan word for omniscience, Longja, Dorja. Longja means things you should dig up, and then Dorja is things you should.
Is that omniscience?
That's the definition of omniscience. We just put it back to anything else. So backwards.
Put everything down. Everything has to be right.
You guys ready? All right, here we go. First question, an omniscient being perceives all existing objects. Some of these objects are changing and some are unchanging. Why does this prove that the mind of an omniscient being must be a changing thing?
Just cause.
Just cause.
What are the unchanging objects?
That are existing.
Yeah.
Emptiness, space, and facts, sorry.
Mhm.
What was the last one?
Emptiness.
Facts. Emptiness, empty space,
Space is not changing.
and facts.
What's facts?
Facts is like the weird one where, for the entire time that a fact exists, it's unchanging.
I've never heard that.
Until it gets corrected.
I kind of remember that, but.
It's so strange. I know the first two. In terms of permanent and non-permanent, like the things that are considered permanent, so everything's impermanent, but the two things that are considered not impermanent are emptiness and space. But I've never heard facts.
Yeah, I kind of remember learning, because I was also like, that makes zero sense. Like,
Yeah.
at one point, it was a fact that the world was flat, and now
Right.
it's not. But kind of remember fighting about it, but you double check on me on that.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yes.
Is space supposed to be a negation of emptiness?
No.
Okay.
No, it's not a negation of emptiness. No, it's not like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm thinking?
Yeah. It's not like the opposite. Like, you mean, is it the opposite of it? No, it's not like that.
Okay.
From my understanding, it's not like that. And I'm thinking about a specific meditation that this lineage has been taught in terms of emptiness and space, and it doesn't negate it. It doesn't negate it. It still exists. It's like you can have a space that is, you can have something that's like this sits in this space and there's an axis, let's say, right, where it is, and this can go away, but that space still exists.
Right.
Right. But
Okay,
it's not
so
the
you're saying-
emptiness of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense? That
Yeah.
space still exists even though the object's not in that space.
Right. Gotcha.
But you can't push it away. It's just, it's always there.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. That's a good question. What was the answer?
Because objects are changing.
So the mind changes as the object, as the mind follows the object,
Mhm.
right? So your mind is never unchanging. Well, an omniscient being's mind is never unchanging because the omniscient's mind will follow the object as it changes.
Yeah.
And it's a fresh perception every time, like minute to minute, second to second. Well, whatever metrics they use. I don't think it's even seconds. What does a person have to know in order to be all-knowing? What's like the true definition, not the true definition, but really the main point of being all-knowing, aside from being able to read everyone's mind, which sounds kind of fabulous and not really at the same time.
What to give up and what to take.
Yeah, so the main point, the main really takeaway that we learned last week was it's not that being omniscient, but it's not, the benefit of it isn't knowing everything about all things all the time. But the real key is really knowing what to give up and what to take. So did I say it right?
Is that for everyone? Like, you know what every individual person needs to give up and take up, or just in
Sure.
general?
Sure. Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah. Because you would be able to see someone's past,
That's what
present, and
changes.
future. So you would be able to get a sense of, or know, not even get a sense. I think you would know what that person would need to give up and what they need to take. Which is one of our biggest obstacles, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like just priorities. I was just on a client call today, and just one of the things we were talking about where she had to get something done. It was really hard for her to decide, and my team and I were like, why did you email so-and-so yesterday? Like, this is top priority, like what happened? And she's like, I don't know, I had all these other things I had to do and I didn't know this one was top. And so, and we just think about even making choices of, I don't know, how many weddings do we go every year? Like, you know, like where do we decide to holiday, or what jobs do we take? You know, do we take this job or do we take that job? Like, what types of endeavors do we have? What's meaningful? The whole point of being, well, not the whole point, but one of the main takeaways of being omniscient is that you have a crystal clear idea of exactly what you engage in and what you don't. And you know why you need to do it, you know, and you have a really clear understanding of it. How do you get there? How do we get to omniscience? We'll talk about it today. Yeah, we're going to talk about it in our proofs today. Number 3, what evidence do we have that the Buddha is unerring? What evidence do we have that he's unerring? Or we can even say he's correct. We'll use that term today a little bit more, correct. How do we know that he's correct or unerring? Why do you think he might be?
I think because he constantly has valid perceptions.
Okay.
And so.
And what's one valid perception that he has, he's talked about, that we have also had ourselves?
Life is suffering.
Yeah. So we've talked about the 4
Arya truths.
Arya truths, which are?
There's suffering.
Suffering, cause of suffering, cause of.
Wait, start from the first one.
Suffering.
What's suffering? Just
Life.
life is suffering.
Life.
Life is suffering. You're like, what is? You are. I am. Like one thing about Tibetan Buddhism, which people like, you know, I think they come in like, oh, this is about like peace and I don't know, whatever you think. And the first thing everyone, most Tibetan teachers will drill into your head is life is suffering. And you're like, what? No, I thought this all about things being, you know, grace and wisdom and compassion. It's like, yeah, that's true. But life is suffering, number 1. Right? It's the cultures that he talks about. So life is suffering, number 1. Number 2.
Suffering is caused.
Suffering is caused. There is a cause to the suffering that you experience, that we all experience.
If there's a cause, there's an end.
If there's a cause, there's actually an end. You can end your suffering.
Therefore, there's a path.
And so if there's a cause and there's an end to it, then there's actually a path. There's a way to get out. There's a path to free yourself from suffering, right? So you have 4, and we'll talk about this today. This will be a part of the proofs that we're going to go through. So, you know, the Buddha, he talks about the 4 noble truths. It is a main part of the Tibetan Buddhist practice. When we talk about life is suffering, it doesn't mean life sucks. That's not the point. And it doesn't mean all aspects of life. Like, don't go around saying life is suffering, everything is so bad, nothing's ever good. That's not what we're saying. What he's saying is that everything does come to an end, you know, and there is suffering in being a human. It only goes for so long, right? You're only going to be young for so long. You will only be beautiful. Well, I don't know. It depends on who you're talking to. Armando thinks everyone's beautiful all the time. So, your health will only be good for so long, right? Nothing good, if you ever think about it, even logically from your own valid perceptions, you've never really had, actually, I can say safely, you've never had something that's been good continuously and it never ends, right? You have the job that you started that you're so psyched about, you finally get paid what you want, you have the team that you want, you have the type of work that you want, you have the office space that you want. What happens 9 months later? You know, you have the relationship that you're so psyched about, like she is amazing. The time of holidays are good, the conversations are good, you're attracted to each other, you have the same value systems, it's so great. What happens a year from now, 2 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years, you know, like what happens, right? And it doesn't mean it doesn't get better, it's just that you can never eat that ice cream forever and continue to eat it and it always tastes good. At some point it's gonna make you sick, right? So there is this idea, this concept here in Tibetan Buddhism, in our lineage that we talk about, when you hear teachers say life is suffering, it's saying that as a human being, right, is that your karma, your life is suffering. There is pain, there is suffering, there is, and it does happen. And so the goal and the point of the practice is realizing that yes, there is suffering, but it also can end. There's a cause for it. So it's also knowing what are the causes for my suffering. And then it's also knowing that it can end and that there is a path. So the Four Noble Truths are a big part of the practice. And from our experience, life is suffering. How many of us have experienced that in our own lives? I think all of us. I mean, I'm not alone, right? Mm-hmm. The second one, in terms of realizing there's a cause for suffering, how many of you guys know the causes for your suffering? You don't know. You might think there, you know. The third thing, that there is an end to all suffering, you know. How many of you believe that there is, like you've experienced that, you know there's an end to all suffering? Maybe have a hunch, right? You might, like, and then the last one is that there's a path, right? So the first one we know, like we're just like, okay, we get it, we know. That's the most reason, that's actually the number one reason why people come to Buddhism and to Dharma, because there's something going on in their lives and they've been trying to work their life in a certain paradigm and it's not working. You know, you can never have enough money to get happy. You're never getting the best play, like no matter how many apartments you have, no matter how many partners that you have, no matter how many wins that you have in your life, whatever reason, it's not working. And for some reason, you're still unhappy and dissatisfied. So most people come to Dharma because they're just thinking, what the hell? My formula that I've used, that I was taught as a kid or taught in my organization or taught in my society and community, that these are the paths to way to be happy, is actually proving that it's not true, you know? And so we've all experienced that to some degree. Now, number 2, 3, 4, that's where you're either going to be able to get a sense from that through logic, or you learn through it through having awareness, realizations, and that's usually on the cushion. Okay, so the main part that we start with when we talk about the Buddha being unerring is we can't necessarily prove, or not actually prove, that's not the right word. We don't necessarily have the direct perception or the valid perception of all 4 of them, but we do know that the first one, the way in which he speaks about it, seems pretty darn good. It's a pretty good indicator, and he's talking from his own valid perception. So based on that, the thinking is, if that's indeed true, it gives us enough confidence to consider looking at the remaining 3, okay? And the remaining 3 start to happen through a deeper understanding of one's practice. Yeah? Okay. Good? All right. Okay, here we go. Words, just so you know, and the reason you do that is because sometimes it's Tibetan, sometimes in Sanskrit, but it's because it's a holy language, so it helps you say plant a seed in your heart for more holiness. That's really it. So I'll usually read. So can you say lukjung?
Lukjung.
Again, lukjung.
Lukjung.
So lukjung is order forward. It's a certain way to look at logic. It means forward order, but you know, we're translating here. And what it means is that when you have logic, it's looking at what causes the next thing. It's like what triggers the next thing. Basically, in a forward order, it means that each previous statement is proven by each succeeding statement.
It's like the if A then B, if B then C.
Yeah.
Therefore, if A then C.
This one actually goes if A then B, if B then C, and it will go in succession.
Mm-hmm.
It won't link from A. I mean, it won't be that kind.
It won't conclude back.
It won't conclude back. It'll just. Yeah. So like the classic example they would have is like a forward example would be, for instance, how do you do a logic moving forward of how to become a Buddha? Like that would be, there's a logic to how to become a Buddha, how to become enlightened. That's one way. Another way that they'll talk about in a class example for those of you who know the Wheel of Life. The first one in the Wheel of Life is two blind people. Do you remember that for some of you? So it's ignorance, and that leads to karma, and that leads to like births and deaths and all these other things that happen. So it's like the logic would be like ignorance leads to karma, karma leads to, you know, and it just starts to trigger, and that's the Wheel of Life moving in a forward direction. I'm doing it right. Yeah. Okay. Next one, can you say lukdong? Again, lukdong.
Lukdong.
So lukdong is order reverse. So it's a reverse order.
Is the K and NG kind of?
Dong.
Dong.
Yeah. Dong. Dong.
Dong.
Dong. Dong. Dong. They don't really have a. It's like in Korean. Armando and I always have this discussion because he's like, "That sounds like a K." I'm like, "It's a hard G," and he's like, "That sounds like a K." It's like, I think it's like dong, which sounds like a K to me, but it sounds like a G to you. So reverse order is going backwards. Like it would be, for instance, if moving forward would be how to become a Buddha, a reverse order would be how do you prove where the Buddha comes from, right? Or if you were to use a Wheel of Life, you would start backwards at the top, at the end where death happens, and it's like how do I do a reverse order and stop death? In order to stop death, what needs to happen? Like all the different things that need to happen in order to stop death. Does that make sense? And you move backwards.
Can you just repeat that about the Buddha?
So reverse order, so forward progression, like the forward order would be how to become a Buddha, and then the reverse order would be how to prove where the Buddha came from or comes from. Where does the Buddha come from? Okay. So today we're going to look at, do you remember this statement that we looked at? It's a famous opening statement by Master Dignaga. It's, remember this? It's I bow down to the person who has these 5 qualities. The protector, those gone to bliss, the teacher, those who wish to benefit sentient beings, and those who have turned into persons with valid perception.
What's the difference, if there is, between the word valid and the word truth?
The difference between valid or truth?
Yeah.
In what context?
Like in terms of having, I guess I mean like when you're using the term valid.
Oh, what's
Does
a
it
valid
have to
perception? Yes, there's a definition to valid perception.
Okay.
So what's the definition to valid perception? Anyone? If you don't know this, seriously, like I'm the worst teacher ever.
A perception that is fresh and unerring coming from an unaffected state of mind.
So a valid perception is a perception that's coming from an unaffected state of mind. So it means like, you know, unaffected meaning you're not drugged, you're not afflicted. Afflictions can also create invalid perceptions. The textbook example, the textbook definition is just it's a fresh perspective. It can't be a memory, so a memory is not considered technically a valid perception, because when you have memories, they're usually colored or skewed to whatever you recall. And if you have perceptions that, let's say you're just, one of the examples that we had in the past classes was, let's say you are just have so much doubt. You don't know. Should I go? Should I not go? Should I go? Should I not go? Like in that moment of so much doubt, your mind is like it's just too much going on, and you actually can't have a valid perception, right? Or if you're just so angry, right, or so offended, it's hard to have actually it's a true perception of what's happening. So it's anything that it's a valid perception is having a perception where your mind is unaffected.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Another way that we've also talked about valid perception too is in the framework of the Buddha or anyone who is omniscient. They only speak from valid perceptions. So certain types of teachers that you'll see, or certain type of, say, high spiritual practitioners will only speak from valid perceptions. They won't speak from other than that. And so that's what we're looking at. So what we're going to do today is look at how do we start to move reasoning, apply reasoning, and move forward in Master Dignaga's 2 lines. So the 4 of these reasons that prove the 5th. The 4th meaning, how does a protector prove and lead to a teacher or one that's gone to bliss, then to a teacher, then moves to how it benefits to a sentient being, and how does that all then tie into someone who's turned into a person with valid perception? Does that make sense? So what we're going to do is we're going to start looking at the 4 reasonings that are up here and start to state what each one proves and how to see how one thing that we're proving will lead into the next one. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. So it's like, how does the protector cause gone to bliss to teacher, those who wish to benefit sentient beings? So that you're not just taking a statement for face value, being like, okay, sure, that's cool. Like Dignaga sounds like he knows what he's talking about. We're okay with that. It's how do we actually prove that? Okay. Can you say Rikpa Shi?
Rikpa Shi.
Again, Rikpa Shi.
Rikpa Shi.
So Rikpa Shi is the 4 reasonings that we're going to be using of the forward order. Is what it's called, Rikpa Shi. Okay. Okay.
Only for the forward order?
Mm-hmm. That's right. Okay. So the first part, we're going to address the protector of that statement. Can you say, Tupa Chuchen?
Tupa Chuchen.
Senmar Girte?
Senmar Girte.
Gyopa Yinpe Chir.
Gyopa Yinpe.
So Tumpa is teacher. Chuchen is take, for example. Samar is totally correct person. Girte is turned into. Yodpa is protector. Yinpe is. And cheers becomes. So basically the statement is, consider the teacher. He became totally correct because he is the protector. Okay. So we're going to start with the protector statement first and look at what the reasoning behind it is. So the question that we would ask here is, what makes someone a protector? Right, so the statement underneath is, consider the teacher, he became totally correct because he is the protector. So the question is, what makes someone a protector? And how do we know that Lord Buddha is totally correct? So we're trying to prove and connect protector to being correct. How do those two make sense and work together? How is he the protector? Because he's correct. What does that mean?
You feel it.
I don't really know, I'm just gonna kind of think out loud.
Think out loud. Let's do it.
Well, I kind of feel like if we're thinking about the context of the four Arya truths, and that there is suffering, that life is suffering, that is Lord Buddha's like correct and direct valid perception, and that to end suffering, if he's gone through these four noble truths, because you can't have a direct perception of emptiness until you see the four noble truths, right? Or something?
From what I remember, the experience wisdom after you've had the direct perception.
Right.
Yeah.
So then if you understand that, then it's like you become the protector because you want to not just end your own suffering, but the suffering for all other living beings.
Yeah. Great. Okay, I'm going to stop there for a second. So let's just do an emptiness exercise yet again, but we're going to use. Do you know the concept of emptiness? You do. Do you know the concept of emptiness? Okay, so everyone knows the concept of emptiness? You know it.
I know something, yes.
You know something? Wait, how do you know the concept of emptiness?
Through the pen.
Good, okay, good. You know the pen. Very good, okay. Anyone says the pen, I'm like, I get it. Okay. We have a thing in this institution about the pen, which I don't even have one. So I'll just do it again as a refresher, okay? Because it's always important. I've heard this so many times, and I still think about it. Like I sit there and look at my pen. I'm like I have these moments at work where I'm just so like aggro about something, and I look at the pen and I'm like, oh yeah, the pen. Of course. So here's the exercise that we have. What is this?
Pen.
It's a pen, right? If a dog were to come into the room and saw this laying here, what would the dog think that might be? A chew toy, probably, right? I mean, something to chew on. Most dogs like to chew on it. My dog used to love chewing on pens, right? So then the question then is this a pen or is it a chew toy? It's both. Why is it both?
It's a pen to us and the chew to the dog.
And if it were a pen to everyone, what would that mean?
That it has a self-existent nature.
Right. So if this pen was self-existent, right? If it was a pen from its own side, is how we say it, then it would emit from here pen, pen, pen. In fact, it would be like pink pen. It's actually really nice, the pink pen. Pink pen, pink pen, pink pen. But not everyone who looks at it will see it as a pink pen. In fact, the projection, you think that the pen's coming at you, but in fact, it's the other way around. You're projecting onto the pen what it is, based on your karma, based on who you are, right? Based on it's karma, right? From your past that you've collected. So when a dog comes into the room, they're seeing a pen. They have it to see it as a chew toy. So it goes the same with, let's apply it to me. How many G's are in the room?
As many of us as can perceive.
Exactly, right? Because each one of you have a different perception. If G was coming from you, like this way, right? Then each one of you would have the exactly same perception of how you see me. But in fact, it doesn't come this way. Right? I wish it did sometimes, but it doesn't. It comes this way, right? You're projecting onto me based on your karmas, based on your background, based on your history of what you think I am and who you think I am, right? So we go out into the world actually thinking the world is coming at us all the time. There's always shit happening and you think the world's doing it to you. You know, that relationship sucks. Why is he that way? You know, that boss sucks. Why is she, he, whatever, you know, why are that way? My neighbor is awful. They're just, you know, and we make these statements and we make these judgments all the time about how things outside of us are a certain way instead of looking and understanding that we're actually projecting that onto that person. There are judgments that we have, right? There are even people that will look at and say, oh, that person, like we'll make stereotypes, you know, that person is X, Y, and Z based on this whole projection. I mean, how many times have you had a preconceived notion about somebody and you had this total, like you had it in your mind, you're like, I totally get that person, just by looking at them. And then you actually have a conversation and you realize what an ass you are because it's not even true. You're so far off base, you know, right? And so that's what we're talking about when we talk about emptiness, right? It's a really powerful tool. And in fact, the more you can see within yourself how much that is you are projecting, the more you can start to understand how to function with wisdom in the world all the time. You know, like I went to a meeting last week that was not comfortable at all. And it was these two women that were so incredibly intimidating and have like an incredible pedigree and just really, really hardcore. And it was interesting because even within that conversation I'm having with them, right, I have my own insecurities and doubts and concerns. It's a business meeting that I'm having, and I'm projecting onto them, you know. I'm seeing from them, from me, I'm projecting onto them as being like hard ass, really, you know, like knows everything, so confident, like all these different things. And because of my own projections. And in fact, when I came back and I regrouped with my team and started to really look at the behavior, it was actually insecurities that were overcompensated from their side that I was noticing, that it was also my insecurity. It's like my insecurity projected something totally different. I didn't project more insecurity. I projected, because of my insecurity, like looking at them as being intimidating. Does that make sense? It like did this weird thing. Whereas instead of just being like, okay, whatever, we're all learning, you know, it's not a big deal, like, this is not a problem. It was an interesting play on my own projections of how I created this whole narrative and storyline of who these people were based on my own issues, not really having a valid perception and taking a good gauge of what is really going on. You know, what am I really seeing? What's the difference between what I'm really experiencing to really what's happening? Like, what's really going on here? How much am I freaking overlaying onto these people of who I think they are, right? Does that make sense? Okay. We had to do the emptiness thing because we'll be talking about it, and I didn't want anyone to be confused. And plus, it's always nice to refresh our minds with the emptiness stuff. So back to Santi, your point. So you're saying the way that you connect being totally correct to being the protector or the correct part, you were saying based on the Four Noble Truths, right? We can make the deduction, right? We're basically deducing and saying a logical statement is because he teaches the Four Noble Truths, and we know that the first one we're all agreeing on, right? That we can start to deduce that he is correct, that there is an unerring state of mind that he has. Yeah?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it is kind of what you were saying, I think. That's what I got.
Said it better.
What's that have to do with protecting them?
So if someone has an unerring state of mind and they're totally correct, then they have the ability then to protect you. What's the number one way that the telling you, yeah.
Yes,
It's
he's not
teaching you.
interested, or he's not going to
Yeah.
deceive you.
I mean, the only thing that the Buddha can't change your karma, right? They can't change your life. You choose how it is. The only thing that they can do, or he can do, is give you knowledge. And the Four Noble Truths is that knowledge. It's the best and only way to protect you. It's like, what's it like, not giving a fish, teaching how to fish. What does that say?
Yeah. Teaching how to fish and he'll live on his own or something.
Yeah. I'm so bad at these. We were just having this discussion. I was talking to my cousin the other day about something, and I'm like, well, you can't do that. You can't make your cake and eat it too, or make your cake and eat it too. And he's like, what? Of course you can. I'm like, I know. It's like a weird Western thing. Everyone says it. It makes no sense, but you totally can. But what I'm talking about. Or, anyway,
were just like, our mom and I were talking about like the straw that broke the camel's back or something. But I was like, we were saying something like the straw that broke the cow's back. And he's like, I think it's a camel. My cow needs a cow. And then I was like, what's with the camel? Like, why do they have straw? Do they eat it? Arcadia. Anyway, sorry, DB. So the idea is that he's teaching you knowledge. So the knowledge is what's going to protect you. He can give you anything better than that. Yeah. I mean, I wish it was a little bit more, but that's really what it is, right? Okay. Okay. The second one, can you say Tupa Chuchen?
Tupa Chuchen.
Kyopa Yin.
Kyopa
Day Dreama.
Dreama.
Pangpei Cheer.
Cheer.
So Tupa is teacher. Chuchen is take for example. Kyopa is protector. Yin is. Daydreama is bad qualities. Pangpei is got rid of. And cheer, is because. So this one is consider the teacher. He is a protector because he has eliminated all bad qualities in himself. Okay. So,
So of course, the 4 reasonings that we're doing, so are these 4 proofs for that initial statement, or are they
they're
parts of one?
No, they're basically 4 reasons. They're four. I don't want to use a rationale, but they're 4 reasonings for each statement. It's like, how are we proving that in the first one? It's like, how are we proving that the Lord Buddha is really correct? Like that's the first one. This one we're going to start to look at based on being a protector. Like how do we connect that? So it's a forward. So it's a forward argument. So like for this one, you have to establish the first one. We're establishing the first one by saying we have to even establish that he's correct.
Yeah.
If we don't establish that he's correct, then the whole argument doesn't even hold. And so if we're saying that he's correct, for the first one to establish it, this one we're going to now look at how do we know that the Lord Buddha is a protector? And how do we use going gone to bliss to be able to prove that he is the protector?
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense? So you'll start to see like the sequence. We have to kind of get through the first two.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Thank you. So it's how do we know that the Lord Buddha is a protector? We know that him giving us the knowledge, so being correct, right, and having the understanding and the knowledge of the Four Noble Truths makes him, it makes sense that that's how he protects, but how do we know that he's a protector?
Can you say that?
How do we know that the Lord Buddha is a protector? So the statement here says he is a protector because he's eliminated all bad qualities in himself. How do we know that he's a protector? What do bad qualities have anything to do with being a protector? Or eliminating bad qualities have anything to do with being a protector?
I'm sort of means that you have your best interests at heart.
But what is his bad quality? What is removing bad anything to do with being a protector?
Does it have to do with emptiness?
He would never harm you.
He would never harm you. Okay. What?
If you have mental afflictions, you wouldn't be. While you have mental afflictions, you don't really know what to give up and take up.
Mm-hmm.
Truly, could they be colored by something like jealousy or anger or?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yes. No.
Does it help protect you or stop you from planning more bad karma schemes?
Yes, kind of. So the answer is that if he's gotten rid of his bad qualities, right, it means that he has no more suffering and he has ended the cause of suffering. It's the first 2 noble truths, right? To be able to remove bad qualities, to eliminate bad qualities, right, of himself, all bad qualities, all bad, what's the word I want to use? it's basically suffering, right? He has to know that suffering exists. He knows that life is suffering, but he's also eliminating the cause of suffering
In himself,
in himself.
right? So he's proving he's gone past.
Yeah.
He's walked the path.
Yeah, right.
Hmm.
When they say he's gotten rid of his bad qualities, the only way you can get rid of your bad quality is to cut it, right? To stop it at the great bad qualities. You have no causes to create bad karma. You have no bad karma that you're creating.
So that would mean you wouldn't have any bad qualities to project on others?
That would be true.
That's how you're a protector?
So then you'd be a protector. That's true, okay. So it's that he is being able to protect because if he knows that suffering exists, he knows that the cause of suffering, he can stop the cause of suffering, then he'll be able to realize everything about all beings and what he needs to protect them from. He understands the causes of everything, of what everyone needs to be stopped from. You can't protect somebody if you don't understand the framework, right? If it's only given within yourself. So the ability that he can actually stop and know how to eliminate the cause of suffering gives him the ability to be able to help you eliminate your causes of suffering.
But how do we know he's like benevolent and do that?
That's a good question. Wait till the very end. That's good. Yeah. Like, how is it not out of evil?
Right, I mean, well, this is like about himself.
Right.
So like, why do we know he's sharing?
Okay, fair. Good. Okay, we're gonna move on to the next one. 3. A capital T versus a lowercase t. When you see a capital T, it's really a teacher that teaches emptiness, so it's not emptiness. Can you say Tupa Chuchen?
Tupa Chuchen.
Drima Pampe.
Drima Pampe.
Tomiki.
Tomiki.
Tumpa Yempe Chair.
Tupa Yempe.
So Tumpa is teacher. Chuchen is take, for example. Drima is bad qualities. Pampe is got rid of. Home is emptiness. He is actually Tomni is emptiness in this context. Tumpa is teacher. Bless you. Yinpei is cheer. I'm sorry. Yinpei is he has become, and cheer is becomes. So the statement is, take the teacher, he has gone to bliss, because he teaches emptiness, which he has confirmed with his own perception. So the question here that would be asked is, how do we know that Lord Buddha has gone to bliss? How do we know that he's gone to bliss?
Does he suffer anymore?
And why doesn't he suffer anymore?
Because he's gotten rid of all his bad qualities?
And how did he get rid of all his bad qualities? What was one of the main things to be able to even get rid of their bad quality? Like, I should say bad quality. To have valid perceptions, and how do you really have valid perceptions? That's right. Yeah, very good.
Use what?
By seeing emptiness. So basically is by him seeing emptiness, he's got rid of all his bad qualities, which has allowed him to go to bliss. But you guys did a really nice, that was good. I like that. Right?
Can you go over that? Can you say that?
It's just saying by seeing emptiness, by him being able to see emptiness, he's gotten rid of his bad qualities, and that has allowed him to go to bliss. Plus, we've always talked about him having valid perceptions. He can't teach emptiness unless he's actually experienced it.
So after the direct perception of emptiness, do you become a person of problem? Do you only have valid perceptions?
No.
So where does that root come from? You said,
Do you only have valid perceptions?
or that's the only, or is it the idea that that's the only actual valid perception?
I mean, that is the valid perception that you're having.
Yeah.
Because you can come out of having the direct perception of emptiness. From what I've heard and what I know is you can have the direct perception of emptiness. And as you come out of it, you do have valid perceptions. But I have heard teachings where it's been said that you can lose it too. Like just because you've had one direct perception of emptiness, you can never have it. It's not that you'll always have it again. Sometimes you will never have it again. But I have heard that once you have it, once you do have a direct perception of emptiness, you do have valid perceptions of it.
Okay, so that's what we're.
Yeah, because you are an Aria at that point.
So we're proving from gone to bliss backwards, not saying every direct perception of emptiness leads to gone to bliss.
Right.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. But we're really talking about in reference to the Buddha.
Mm-hmm.
How do we know that the Buddha has gone to bliss? In particular.
Because we're talking about this in relation to number 2.
Yeah. It's not all beings will have gone to bliss if they have the direct perception of emptiness.
Okay.
They should. At some point.
Is it confusing you, Supriya, because we're working backwards?
Yeah, I think I'm
do the forward.
Yeah, it's weird, right?
It really is.
It's really, I had to like chart it out when I was doing it.
Yeah, I'm getting confused on causality. Like, we're
I
not saying that this causes this, we're saying because of this, all this.
Yeah. It's weird. It's like you go one step back to move one step forward.
So which way is forward?
This is forward. What we're doing is forward.
So the first stop is protector,
Uh-huh.
and then moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. So we're doing protector was the first one. The second one was gone to bliss. The third one now is teacher. So we're proving within each one, but in order to do protector, we had to go one step back to say, okay, how do we know that the reasoning of the protector, like how do we know that the Lord Buddha is actually correct in order to even say that he's a protector? Then when we went to gone to bliss, it was, okay, we know that he's gone to bliss, but how do we know that he is a protector in order to go to bliss? And then for a teacher, it was like, okay, we know he's a teacher, but how do we know he's gone to bliss in order to be a teacher? So you kind of do go back one to be able to prove that one point.
Because this is like the present statement, and what you were saying is that the preceding statement is what proves the like.
Yeah, or exactly.
Yeah, so it's
Okay, 4, helps all beings. Here we go. Tupa Chuchen.
Tupa Chuchen.
Tong Ni Ki.
Tong Ni Ki.
Tupa Yente Tu. J.
Okay.
Sorry. Can we say that again? Tupa Yente Tu J.
Tumpa Yinte Tuche.
Chenpo Yupa Cheer.
Chenpo Yupa Cheer.
So Tumpa is teacher. Chuchen is take for example. Tongni is emptiness. Ki is Yinte is he is. Tukje is compassionate. Chenpo is great. And Yupa Cheer is because he possesses. Okay. And this is, he's a teacher because he has great compassion, meaning helps all beings. So basically this last one, the reasoning is that his compassion, because he has great compassion, it compels him to teach emptiness. And the realization for him to teach emptiness eliminates all his bad qualities, which has allowed him to go into bliss, which is why he is a protector. I'll say that again.
Mhm.
His great compassion, which compels him to teach emptiness, of emptiness eliminates his bad qualities. Which has allowed him to go into bliss, or reach bliss, reach bliss, you say that, and then become a protector.
One more time.
His great compassion, which compels him to teach emptiness. Great compassion compels to teach emptiness. Then the realization of emptiness eliminates his bad qualities. Which then leads to reaching bliss. And then become a protector. In my notes, literally, just so you guys know, like when I do this, I like, because I'm prepping and I have to do it visually. So it's just like, it's really just like great compassion, arrow, you know, teaches emptiness, arrow. This is arrow, this way, that way. To realization of emptiness eliminates bad qualities, arrow, gone to bliss, arrow, protector. Just like, I think that helps too, just to see it visually that way. I was going to put it up there on a slide, but then I felt like I was micromanaging your notes. So I thought I would leave it to each one of you to decide how you wanted to dictate. Okay. Okay, good. So again, just a quick review. Oh, yes.
Sorry.
Oh.
If you don't mind keeping it there.
The connection from bliss to protector
Can you?
is because, yeah.
The connection from bliss to protector.
Because of this second truth, right? It's eliminated all the causes for suffering in himself.
Because he removed the negative qualities in himself. That's what that was there.
Should we put up a statement?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Is he compassionate because he no longer has like selfishness?
Yeah, so
like
actually,
automatically becomes compassionate?
that's interesting. So we're gonna talk about, there's 3 different kinds of compassion. So we'll go over that really quickly. Yeah. You know what's interesting, when I was like prepping for this class and I was going through this, I'm like, yeah, okay, it's logic, I get it. And trying to just figure out how to frame it up. But the one thing that I have to say, it was just a really good reminder for myself too, of, at least for now, it feels like at the end of the day, to really have the direct perception of emptiness is so important. I mean, it really is. Last night, Armando and I went to a teaching in the Sakya tradition and saw His Holiness Sakya Triton. And so Sakya Triton is the head of the Sakya lineage, it's like equivalent to His Holiness the Dalai Lama of the Galupa lineage. Kind of, except His Holiness the Dalai Lama is like of all lineages. But anyway, and he was teaching, and he started the teaching with talking about how important it is that no matter what, like even if you're going to do a Dharma practice, you've got to be a good person. Like it just needs to start with being good. And he's ending it with talking about wisdom and compassion, and I'm listening, and I'm like, okay, I know this stuff, but like, how do I deal with, my frustrations and like my insecurities and my inadequacies and my bubble, and I'm like feeling this momentum and bubbling up of. I'm not like trying to go out and kill people or hurt anybody intentionally, like I'm being, but I have all this other stuff that's happening emotionally all the time. Like, what about that stuff? It's not bad per se, but how do I, like, what do I do with that? Like, give me something that can apply to my life right now, Because he also started about talking about this book that he just wrote of how it's about how to be a practitioner in an everyday world. And I'm like, this is what I need to know. And at my company, we run these workshops, and all the time we have people that are coming in with just so much, it's just insecurities that are getting in the way of themselves. So I'm around that a lot. And I remember last night walking out thinking about the teaching and thinking about, what if I had asked him, I wonder what he would have said, and and just kind of doing logic, really. What is insecurities? What does that mean? And it's all fear-based, and that's just an illusion I created in my mind, and just like working it back and chipping away at like, how do I get rid of that? And so it was a reverse order. And at the end of the day, it just lands on the exact same thing all the time. You have to see the emptiness of it all. Mm-hmm. And if you don't see that, it's like no matter. And I'm a huge proponent of therapy, by the way, but no matter how much therapy you have, it doesn't get to the core. It just tells you where it came from in this lifetime, maybe, But you do have to, if you really want to nip in the bud and you want to be able to understand and live a life that has, where you're not being pulled in these different ways and trying to understand what it is to have a rich, meaningful life in a superficial way, it is an emptiness conversation. It's an emptiness practice. And it's so important, And you can't do it if you don't act with virtue. You just don't. It takes a lot of good karma to be able to have that experience. That's not just a diligence and practice. Like, you can be practicing every day, but I'm doing emptiness meditations and understanding logically. But if you're out in the world being a total dick, you're not going to get any realization. That karma is not there for you. So it's a big. It was just a really good reminder, and even just prepping for class. Like, yes, we've heard these teachings and we get it, but it's like the source of so much of our suffering. Everything. We just look at things so conventionally constantly. And we try to find different ways of how to re-strategize our lives or try to refigure out something, or we think if we position it this way or that way, or dress this way, act this way or that way, it's going to change the outcome. And it's not true. And we all know that's not true, but we still buy into that, which is crazy. It's crazy. And we're conditioned to it. Okay. So, I'm going to just plow through. We're almost done. Just hang in there. We have 3 slides left. There's 2 things that are needed for bodhicitta. What's bodhicitta, first and foremost?
It's the wish. Is it the wish to be enlightened for the sake of all senses?
Yeah. So one is, here we go. Can we say Ninjay?
Ninjay.
And Jampa.
Jampa.
So Ninjay is compassion. It's to remove suffering. It's the wish to want to remove suffering. And Jampa is love, to give happiness. So bodhicitta has to have both. It's a cocktail of both of them. Ning actually translates into heart, and J, or essence, and J means Lord. So Ningje, the actual translation is Lord of Heart, which I think is really beautiful. So I'm throwing that out there in case you want to know. But
Lord of Heart.
Lord of Heart. It's not just like, I think sometimes people think bodhicitta is, you know, the wish to want to remove people's suffering, but there is that infusion of love that has to be there. And it's interesting that they separate compassion and love. You know, it's not like, compassion doesn't necessarily mean it's love. Okay? And there's a reason why. So there are 3 different types of compassions. The first one is regular compassion, is the wish that others be freed from common suffering without taking upon oneself the responsibility to bring this about. So basically, regular compassion is the wish for other people to be freed from suffering. But it has nothing to do with you, really. You know, you're just like, yeah, I wish that they're gonna get better, or I wish that they have a place to, a roof over their head, or yeah, I wish that you get healthier, or you know. But that's compassion. Then there's something called great compassion. So in that last reasoning that we saw, it was great compassion, if you remember it. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. And so great compassion is what we're talking about with bodhicitta. It's the wish that allows others to be freed from all suffering. And the decision to make this happen through oneself, the decision to protect all beings. So it's something where you do feel the bodhicitta, right? You're going to take on the responsibility. It is your responsibility to be able to free these people and save everyone. So I know this sounds crazy, but I'm just going to say that when we did the reasoning and the statements, you're saying, well, how do you know it's compassionate or not, right? The underlying theme and the idea is that great compassion is the primal cause for all of this. You have to have great compassion. It's the start of it all. Like, you can't even start the conversation without having great compassion within this argument. It's not possible. Like, you'll have no interest of being a protector. You have no interest of wanting to, I mean, if you even know the Four Noble Truths, like, you would understand. Like, it would be almost, to be able to even have the direct perception of emptiness, there has to be great compassion, is what they're saying, to even get to that point. And so because that's the foundation there, it starts with great compassion in order to even move into any of these arguments that we talked about today. Okay, and the last one is holy great compassion. It's the compassion of a enlightened being, of someone who actually does help all living beings. So you have, you know, yes, I want other people to be free from suffering, to I wish for everyone to be free from suffering, and I'm going to be responsible for that. I'm working towards that. And the holy great compassion is I'm actually doing that. Right? I'm enlightened and I am doing that. Just for homework stuff I'm going to throw out there for those of you that are doing it, you're going to have a question asking which of the 4 reasonings relates to perfect thought and which to the perfect action. So there's 2 things that they're going to be asking: perfect thought and perfect action. Perfect thought is the reasoning of great compassion, and perfect action is a reasoning of a teacher relates to perfect action.
Sorry, say it again.
So perfect thought is the reasoning of great compassion. It's the reasoning of great compassion relates to perfect thoughts, what they're saying. But it's the reasoning to great compassion.
Reasoning of
Great compassion.
great compassion for perfect
That's a
thought.
perfect thought. The perfect thought is great compassion. The reasoning of great compassion. The perfected action, not perfect, perfected action is the reasoning of the teacher, with a capital T.
Perfected action.
In terms of which
Reasoning.
basically means the perception of emptiness. So the perfect action is the perception of emptiness in relation to a teacher.
Perfected action, reasoning. But what did you say? Reasoning of what? After perfected thought?
The reasoning of the teacher. So perfect thought is the reasoning of great compassion, and perfected action is basically the perception of emptiness for a teacher. And then you're also going to have a question that I'm going to just put out there, so just so you have it, is which of the four reasonings that we went over today relates to the culmination of one's own goal versus others' goals? So the reasoning that relates to one's own goal is having gone to bliss, the destruction of all negative qualities, and others' goals will be things like the reasoning of the protector or working to protect all beings.
What about the teacher?
No. Because the teacher is not your goal or others' goals. It's just the reasoning of the teacher itself.
Yeah. Okay.
So basically it's like, what's your own goal? It's having gone to bliss or the destruction of all negative qualities. Yeah. Like those are the main goals. You're trying to go to bliss and you're trying to destroy all negative qualities. That's like your own personal goal. And then they're saying others' goals would be protector or working to protect all beings. My teacher's not in there. Working to protect all beings. Oh, it's the reasoning of the protector or working to protect all beings relates to the culmination of others' goals. I'm just throwing that out there if you guys have more questions. Okay. All right. Last slide. Okay, here we go. So this is just on your homework. I'm just going to throw this out there so that you know. Basically, there was, towards the end, during Dharmakirti's lifetime, he was hanging out with another Hindu school called the Charvakas. And the Charvakas believed that the mind and the body, the mind died when the body died. And so there was this debate that happened. Basically, the Charvakas believe that when you know, a woman and a man come together, once they conceive and they have a child, right? When the child's brain starts to develop, that's when the mind continues. That's when the mind starts. And when the body dies, the mind is gone. I mean, that's their reasoning. And so there's 3 different reasons that they have that I'm going to list up here. We're not going to go into it, but I just want you to know that they do exist. And there was a debate that Dharmakirti had done with this school to prove that, in fact, that there are future lives that happen. A lot of years to be able to generate great compassion. Great compassion isn't something that you just do in one lifetime. It's something that's a culmination of millions of lifetimes. Or should I say holy great compassion is something that's not done in one lifetime. It's done in a million lifetimes to be able to achieve. Unless in the higher teachings that we've talked about, or I've mentioned in the past, and you've probably heard of other teachings, but if you're on a secret path, like a higher path, you can reach enlightenment in 7 lifetimes versus a bazillion. Okay, you guys know this? Here we go. All right, the first one. The mind is a quality of the body.
I mean,
true that the mind side? Is this true the mind side?
So this is the argument that the Charvakas have. This is what they were believing. So I'm just putting this up there so that you know. It's also in your homework and meeting quiz. But it's basically a debate, because in the Tibet, in our school, right, we don't believe that the mind dies when the body dies. The mind continues. And we have logic that we've talked about to prove that, right? We've talked about continuity, for instance, like other teachings that we have had. But these are just three reasons that this school has had that was a debate that I'm just presenting to let you know.
So that they believe this.
Yeah, they believe that the mind dies when the body dies. And their reasoning is that the mind is a quality of the body, is what they're saying. So whatever quality your body has, your mind has. So if your body is drunken, your mind is also drunken. The second one is the mind is by nature dependent on the body. Like the mind needs the body to exist. And the third one is the mind is a result of the body. The mind only really comes into reality once the body does. And it's interesting because even in science, you know, you'll see arguments that actually speak to how the mind does not live in the body. And I think I gave an example a couple classes ago where there was a documentary done where I think it was a neuroscientist or a brain scientist, brain surgeon. There was a woman that was having a surgery. Her body was officially dead. They had a very long surgery, and she, even though she was technically dead, she was able to have an out-of-body experience and see exactly what happened during the entire procedure, like vividly, very clear. And they have a documentary based on this and talking about how the mind doesn't actually, like people have experiences outside of their bodies, even though the body is presumed dead.
A lot of near-death experience, people have the same exact
Exactly.
experience.
Yeah.
They hit the car, something that chokes them out.
Yeah, and they'll see things.
Yeah.
Like they'll have a whole, and there are things that she does not, there's no way that she could have known. Actually also just being under is like a whole other thing, right? She's in, like, it's surgery, it's brain surgery. Yeah.
You can also, there's this New Yorker article, let me just send you, but you can trigger like areas of your brain to trigger an out-of-body experience.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Interesting. You should send that, and I'm gonna pass it along to him.
So are we gonna talk about so John Hughes disproves each of these three things?
Yeah.
Are we gonna talk about? So I'm always curious, because I remember hearing about another class, but why do we never talk about what are the proofs against them?
About what the mind.
About each of these, like
Yeah, I mean, we
I
have talked
like
about, we have talked in general in terms of the mind dying and the body dies, we have talked about continuity, like if your mind, you know, like there's moment to moment how it's scream together.
so much
Like-
to cause that.
Yeah.
I guess I just sometimes struggle, like I don't see how that's separate from one of these,
Mhm.
like I'll be like.
Mhm.
So I'm always
We
curious.
do talk about it in, I'm wondering in how karma works, if we actually talk about it. Because we brushed on it in course 1 or 2, but we do go more in depth to it. Okay. We're done. I'm gonna close. Nice job. I'm sorry to give you a break. We were just wanted to make sure you guys got all of these. Thank you.
Sashi Kuki
Jishin Metotam Sangye Shindu Mite Uwargi
Yokunanda Kshila Shiparsho Idam Guru Ratnamandala Kamriyatayami Gewa Di Keokun Sunam Yeshe Soksokshi Sunam Yeshe Jamwe Dampa Kunito Parsho.
Just sit quickly. We're gonna dedicate, so sit in a comfortable meditative position. And just take a moment and remind yourself or recall why you came to class this evening. What you're looking for. Really crystallize that feeling, that intention. And dedicate your efforts for being here tonight with your intention to someone you love, who you think could benefit from something you learned tonight. Send it to them, whether it's through a visualization of light radiating from your heart, whether it's warmth, whether it's seeing visually the impact of how you think it could transform their life, or even just wishing deeply that you can also help them too. Commend yourself for being here tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Jee.